Hey everyone, welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Sopransky, your host, and I have some good news for you today, and I'm going to tell you that in just a second. You can hear me on every Thursday morning on WCRF 103.3 in Cleveland or the Moody Radio app, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. You can call, you can text in questions, you can send in a joke, and you can also mail in food to the station for me if you think I look skinny, which I don't. You can call here, 1-800-344-2534. If you want to ask a question directly of us, there's a chance that I could be here and take your phone call. There's also a good chance that I won't be here and I won't take your phone call, so you give it a shot. You can email questions to Corey, K-O-R-Y, at epsf.com, all running down here. We have an Amazon trip going in March of 2025. We're going to do a lot of different things. 2026, March of 2026, I'm told. March of 2025 has already been and gone, so March of 2026. We're going to be doing a lot of different things on that trip so we can take a bigger team than normal. We're going to be working at the mission base, we're going to be working in town, and we're going to be fixing a well. I don't know that we'll actually be digging a well, or you can support it. If you want to call here and find out how to support the well dig, to send somebody in your place, of course we could do that. nativosusa.org is the website. We're going to update some pictures on there. It's actually a very clunky website to manage. Now for the good news. As if that wasn't good news enough. Sin of Retirement, the book. It's coming out. We're gonna have the website go live probably next week, and the introduction for the book will be there. It's not a long book. It is a biblical look at how retirement, my opinion of biblically how retirement should look. You're gonna love it, and I can't wait to get it out there. So the introduction should be available at the end of next week, is my guess, and that's what we're aiming for. So hopefully that'll be true. And I'm going to do something today that you don't see a lot in the media or finance. You don't see it a lot, actually. You can see it in the numbers, but people will usually have an excuse for why the numbers were bad. But I'm going to tell you something that you just don't hear a lot, and that was I made a mistake. I'm going to admit to a mistake. An error that I made in calculating something, and it's not that I loved my wife too much or anything like that, or I'm too friendly with people. That's not it. This is real. I calculated that and I've said it here, so you can go back and check the tape. It's definitely recorded, and I've said it on the radio, and to just about everybody who would listen to me. I felt like by mid-June we would be done with tariff talk, that the tariff talk would have ceased, full cessation by then. We would have deals in the pipeline. All those things would be happening by really mid-June was my time frame, and I was wrong about it. It's actually early May, because the Chinese came to the table. We had an agreement in principle with England and some other countries too, and they're all going to be here. They're all going to come here. But the most important one, the most important trading partner we have really is China, and they send a lot of stuff here. I was listening to somebody talk the other day, and it was interesting because they were talking about the trade deficit, and they said, the trade deficit's not a big deal. It's just not a big deal. It's not like we're getting cheated. We get something from China and we give them something. We give them money for it. And I guess the thing that with China that was so important was it just isn't the trade deficit. That's a big part of it, that they send way more stuff here than we send there. And they want to be thought of as a mature economy, which they're not, but they want to be thought of that way. So they kind of play both sides of the fence. But not only was it about trade for China, but it's also about the currency manipulation. It's about fentanyl. It's about IP theft. What the Chinese do to us is we open up a company. We have intellectual property that is, and is protected. You don't have to disclose this stuff to your competition. It is the methods that we produce. Sometimes it's the ingredients. It's the way things get done. It's how they get done. Think of it as the secret sauce. And the Chinese will say, well, we think that you're stealing our intellectual property. Now, everybody knows that's not happening, but they take us to federal court where we have to disclose our intellectual property. They then steal it and produce against us. It's about all of those things with China. So it's just not trade. Looking at it just from a trade perspective is a little Pollyannish and narrow. So we're going to get a lot of those things done. In fact, the Chinese, in a surprise move, sent one of their top security personnel to talk about how they were going to help us with fentanyl. Because what they do is operations in China make fentanyl. They send it to Mexico where the cartels put it in drugs because it's cheap, very addictive. People don't realize this here. They take it, they OD. And it is a big problem. We're losing a lot of people that, would you lose them all if it weren't for China? Well, I don't know, but I know that a lot of people are dying from overdoses. And if there's something that we could do about it, we should try. We should make it hard to send drugs to America. Yes. However, so I was planning on really implementing a lot of the new investment money that we have mid to late May. Well, everything got pushed up and we missed it. It doesn't mean that the market's over. It doesn't mean that you missed the gains for the year, because I have other good news for you. The markets are going to be strong into the end of the year. And that's part of the what happens next thing. What happens next is the markets will be strong into the end of the year. We're going to get a new budget. We're going to get a new tax bill that's going to codify the Trump tax cuts of 2016. That's going to be really positive because people can plan on it now. It's way more difficult to change it, to revert back to the old tax code if these are of law. And we have the votes to do that. America voted last year. They voted for a new president. They're going to get a new president anyway because Joe Biden wasn't running. But they voted Republican. The Republicans took the Senate. They took the House, not by a lot. And the administration knows that the margin in the House is slim. And so they're on a clock. And it's an internal clock that they're on in regards to the market. And if the market is horrible going into the midterms, or even the 4 months before the midterms, they're going to lose the majority in the House. Trump is going to get impeached. Now, it won't go anywhere because they're still going to own the Senate, but going to have to deal with that stuff. They don't want to deal with that, and they want America to be prosperous. It's not just about winning elections, although that's important. They want us to be prosperous, and you can see that in the trip that they are in the middle of right now in the Middle East, where they're signing deals. Boeing just got the largest order ever from the Qatari government. They're going to buy, get this, over 200 787s and 777s. Over 200. It's a humongous order. Now, it takes years to see that order go through, and a lot of it's replacing old planes and things like that, but they got the order. Trump is like the chief salesman for the United States right now, and I like this. I like when our leaders go out and push American businesses, and that's exactly what they're doing. So I think in the long run, the way the tariff thing is going to play out is going to be very, very good for America. I don't know how much manufacturing it's going to bring back here, but it will bring back some. But we're going to get business out of it. And businesses are going to continue, and the tariffs are going to be mainly in the past by the end of June. So we're going to get markets strong to the end of the year. We're going to get tax codification. We're going to get a new lower budget. Now, I want you to not focus on the number here. You got to focus on the direction. It took us a long time to get $36 trillion in debt. We're not going to get out of $36 trillion of debt in 1 year. And even when we do, we're still going to have $18 trillion because the world needs our debt. The world buys our debt. It's a stabilizing force. It's why we're the world's reserve currency. So we don't want to have zero debt, believe it or not. We don't. The world needs it. You're going to see inflation falling slowly. It's just that to go from 9 to 5 in inflation growth was relatively easy. To go from 5 to 3, not quite as easy. To go from 2.8 to sub 2, it's going to be hard. a lot of those costs, you look at the UPS contract, you look at the GM contract, those things were all inflationary. It's really hard to take that last bit of inflation and do away with it. How do you do it? You make gas prices lower, you make fuel prices lower in general. So you're bringing down the cost of the number one thing that we spend money on: heating our house, cooling our house, and driving cars. Even electric cars, believe it or not. What fuels electric cars? Coal. That's what fuels electric cars. Well, I've never seen anybody putting coal in their electric car. Yes, you have. If they plug it in, you're putting coal in your electric car. How do you think we create the world's electricity? Some of it's by natural gas. Some of it is nuclear. Most of it is coal. That's what happens. So I think you're going to get falling costs through the end of the year. And because of that, you're probably going to get some rate cuts. Maybe June, but I think probably not. The Fed has it's really got a political bent now. And I think the political bent comes from two events. It comes from waiting way too long to raise rates under the Biden administration. And it's going to come from waiting way too long to lower rates in the Trump administration. They have the illness of too lateness on both sides. And I do think that Chair Fowl, I used to call him Chair Powell, but now he's Chair Fowl. I think he needs some kind of economic exorcism right now. Even if you were just talking rates lower, would be a positive thing. And not even doing that right now. Usually they start with the talk. You see rates kind of trending lower. You see business expansion. And then they back it up with a physical rate cut. I think it'd be hard pressed to see that in June right now. They may surprise us all, but I doubt it. So I think markets are strong into the end of the year because there's a midterm election coming up in 2026. And, one of the things that the Democrats and Joe Biden learned is that people have a long memory when it comes to things that hurt their finances. And so you've got to be growing that market going into election time. Inflation, the height of inflation was 2 years before the election, but everybody remembered it didn't help that eggs were like $5-6 a dozen around election time. That really did hurt the Democrats. And I think it shows me that bad events have way greater impact than good events. Because the market had recovered in a lot of ways going into the election. But people remembered the bad stuff. That's why you got to get the bad stuff out of people's mind as quick as possible. And we want to do that. We want America to be growing, and it is going to grow. I like the setup into the end of the year. I think it's going to be really positive. And if I did make a mistake and not invested your money in time, don't worry. There's a lot of growth to come. It's going to be, as Donald Trump would say, humongous and beautiful. It's going to be the most beautiful market rally ever. So I have a question this week from a listener about long-term care. And really the question is, who should buy it? Who should buy long-term care? And I think it helps to kind of talk about what you're actually buying now, too. The long-term care market has totally changed. I started in business in 1992. And in 1992, what you did is you bought a 2-year benefit, a 3-year benefit, a 5-year benefit, or a lifetime benefit. And if somebody was looking at a 5-year benefit, it made sense to really buy the lifetime benefit because the cost difference was so minuscule. A little bit, but not as much as you would think, because really not a lot of people spend more than a couple of years in long-term care before one of two things happens. They either get better and leave, or they get worse and assume room temperature, but either way they're leaving. One person goes home and one person leaves in a box. So to say, well, you're going to be in a long-term care facility for 20 years was not very common at the time. It turned out that people did spend a long time in long-term care facilities because they had these stepped up to kind of like these ratcheting up care facilities where you could start in long-term care where they would cook for you, they would clean for you, and they would help you get dressed. These activities of daily living. I think there's 7 of them. You have to not be able to do 3 to invoke your policy. And a lot of these policies got invoked on the 3rd thing. People moved out of their houses, they moved into a long-term care facility, and if you had a lifetime benefit, you're getting covered. That's what actually led to a lot of the changes in the long-term care industry, where you're no longer buying a time frame, you're buying a dollar amount. How you choose to use that dollar amount is totally up to you. What most people choose to do is early on, if they have those 3 activities of daily living that they cannot do, one of them is bathing. So let's say, the most dangerous place in a house that's not retrofitted is the bathroom. It's slippery, you're stepping over a tub in some houses just to get in the shower. This is a very dangerous place. A lot of accidents in the bathroom. So people are spending their money on long-term care, but they're doing it at home. So they're stretching out that time frame. They're not going to a facility that might be $600 a day using all their benefits. So who should buy it? Well, if you have $10,000 in the bank and that's all you have, don't buy it. If you have $100 million in an investment account, don't buy it. You don't need it. You could just self-fund it. So somewhere in between basically 0 and ultra wealth is the right number. What is it? Probably, a couple $1 million or less, maybe $3 million or less. I think you're buying long-term care insurance. Maybe it's $4 million. On $4 million, you could provide $200,000 of income into perpetuity and still grow the account. Long-term care is going to cost you easily $90,000 a year for a person. 90 and rising. Every year it goes up. So you'd have to be growing that portfolio. So maybe around 4 or 5 million or less, you should be thinking about long-term care insurance. And then the time frame that you buy, or the dollar amount that you buy, is totally dependent on you. How much do you want to buy? How long do you think you would be in long-term care? And it's got an inflation adjustment in there too. So once you invoke that policy, you get a little bit more time than what you thought. Excuse me, but that's what really long-term care is used for, what I call the tweeners. Between people that have, if you had $500,000 and you want to leave it to your kids, you should buy a long-term care policy. Absolutely. I've talked to a lot of people who just self-funded it. They had a spouse that, for whatever reason, sometimes it's dementia, Alzheimer's, they're in a facility, but they're not, but the other spouse is not. They have enough money, they just fund it. We had a client that kept his spouse at home, just had enough money to have full-time nursing staff. That's rare. It's really rare. Most people are going to go to a facility. Most people want to stay together, and so they go to a facility together. They sell the primary residence. They go to a facility, maybe they put money down on the housing portion of it, and then they pay for the services as needed. And then if somebody gets to the point, one of those two gets to the point where they need full-time nursing care, they can transition that spouse, that person, into the more hospital-like setting. So tweeners is who really should buy long-term care. And you're going to be, it's not cheap. I'm going to tell you right now. Look around. There's really 4 or 5 really good companies. There used to be dozens and dozens of companies that did long-term care, but they really got put out of business by their benefit package, because the time frame of the benefit package didn't keep up with the cost of medical care. So people had a 5-year benefit. It was costing the insurance company a couple $1 million. Well, they couldn't cover that with the premium they had charged. And so that's what happened to the long-term care companies. GE was a good example where they had to sell off their long-term care insurance company because it just wasn't profitable. In fact, it was losing tons of money. So if you have questions about that or anything financial, feel free to call here. We want to talk to you. We want to be part of that solution if you want us to be. And if we don't do it, we'll steer you in a direction where you can't find the answers. We want to make sure people get taken care of. I am David Safransky, a true red-blooded gun-owning patriot and the voice you can trust.